Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Keeping Up with the Calligraphers. This is Alex of Signs of Our Lives, and
I'm Kat of Cat Lauren Calligraphy.
we are excited to be bringing this episode to you today. But full transparency, we are both coming to you with our pajamas on in our concert tees.
Burnt the hell out.
Burnt the hell out.
We done did it again, everybody. We done overbooked ourselves.
Not us. No way. So Kat and I both girl bossed a little too close to the sun this past week, as some of you might have seen on Instagram, because we are releasing this episode in like 24 hours after we record this thing, because we want you to take advantage of a time-sensitive offer. Just to tell you guys about our week. Alex here, that I have been basically from Monday to today's now Sunday, been driving around all of SoCal as I usually do. Someone literally messaged me the other day, was like, why are you always driving? Because Southern California is very large, and for some reason, accounts and event vendors, we just do this over here. I don't know why. It doesn't make sense to me either, but here we are.
Well, you also like quadruple booked yourself with like your Sweet Greens tour and then events multiple times a week.
Yeah, so 5 events this week. 5 events. I think I did like 20 chalkboards for Sweet Green in between all the events, and then plus driving from OC to LA to OC and then back and all the things. So I'm tired, but I also didn't fly across the country and back. So go off.
As one does, I was like, yes, I will. No, okay, what actually happened was I gave myself like almost four back-to-back-to-back events. I did not realize until I like zoomed out in my calendar. I was like, oh, those are all literally back to back. So we worked together Tuesday, and then I had to fly out Wednesday for something on Thursday, fly back same day. I was literally on the ground for like, I don't even think I was on the ground for like 14 hours, to be honest with you. I turned right around and came back. And then, yeah, did the two weddings back to back. So, and yeah, and then it's the twins' birthday. They're going to be 3, which is just disrespectful, honestly, but there'll be 3 on Tuesday. Then we are obviously throwing a party on Saturday. And then I will be leaving again to go to Spain. So no lessons will be learned.
For being teachers, we're just do what we say, not what we do, I think is the message here. I am now taking another rest day or days because I'm burnt the fuck out. Yeah, we gotta prioritize what we gotta prioritize, and that is why we're coming to you today, because as many of you have asked, we have a live event contract for artists, which is super different and cool. It's different than the contracts that we calligraphers and artists are used to seeing people offer, the contract lawyers offer in the world. So yeah, it's been requested, this episode as well as the contract. So we're here to introduce the person behind it. And anything else to add?
Yeah, so if you haven't guessed it already, based on, I'm sure, the title of this episode, or you have any idea what we're talking about, this is going to be an episode that is an interview with the legal Paige. And I've worked closely with her to kind of help co-create, not necessarily co-create. I didn't write shit. I'm clearly not a lawyer, but just to consult with her about things that would be important to live event artists, situations that come up for us that we feel like we want some better protection for, all of that. And she is such a light, honestly, and just has been a great listener, is very quick on edits. So it's just been really a good partnership. So before we get into that interview, I'll just go through her bio very quickly. So Paige is the founder of The Legal Page, which, hello, we love that title. a virtual legal educational platform working with small businesses. She's a certified Juris Doctor and holds a double BA in economics and political science. After working as a federal law clerk, Paige traded in traditional law life for a virtual one and opened the doors to the legal page in 2018. She helps her clients and online community run legal and protected businesses through her contract shop, podcast, YouTube channel, and blog. Her mission is to create an online space where the law isn't so scary and entrepreneurs can get legally legit in no time. Law aside, Paige is a Montana mom who loves hiking, lake time, and a good game of Catan, which we also love a good game of Catan. So I feel like we need to connect on that.
Wait, hold on. You like, okay, first of all, also I call it Catan. Is it Catan?
Okay. I don't know. We call it Catan, but I absolutely could be wrong.
For anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about, it's a board game that's for nerds. And I didn't know that you liked that.
We love Catan in this house.
Really, we're going to have to bring that on our next trip to play. I wonder if they have travel. You say
They do. They have like little card, like a card version. I haven't played it, but I have seen it. So
I do know they have an online version because my husband played that.
Of course he does. All right. This has been unhinged enough. Thank you all. And here is our interview with Paige. Cue transitional music. All right. Hi, Paige. Thanks for joining us here on the Keeping Up with the Calligraphers podcast. We're so happy for you to be here.
I am honored and appreciative. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to get into this legal chat.
All right. Really quickly, for anybody that hasn't come across you or your content before, do you want to just give us a brief introduction in your own words?
Absolutely. So, hi, everyone. My name is Paige Griffith. I am the owner and lead attorney behind the Legal Page. We're a legal education platform, so we have lots of free legal goodies and information and knowledge for all small business owners, particularly creatives. And we do it via blog, via podcast. I have the Legally Legit podcast. So if you like listening to podcasts, which you might because you listen now, that's a good one to listen to. YouTube's, and then I do lots of short form reels on Instagram and short form videos on TikTok. And then we have lots of freebies and resources on our website as well. And then we sell contract templates and a la carte clauses. If you need to like beef up your existing contract, we sell those separately. And then we also have short forms that you may need in your legal toolkit throughout your business journey and legal guides as well. I am a former photographer, so that's kind of the cool part of my journey is I have been in the wedding and event industry creative space for over a decade. We're getting to close to 15 years, which is dating me a little bit. But I kind of know all of the nuances and ins and outs of big live events, big weddings, deliverables, clients' expectations. And then I have been now with my pulse in the industry for a very, very long time. So it's kind of a unique perspective of where I have my legal background and, business law, contract law expertise meets creative business owner. And that is where the Legal Page was founded in 2018. And since then, we have just grown kind of exponentially, which has been really cool to see. I have a whole team across the United States. We have lots of lawyers on our team. It's not just me. And I just love combining both my passions into one. I was able to kind of do something different with my law degree, which is really fun. And I'm joyous every single day when I come to work. And I love, this is my love language, just talking all things legalities of running your own business. You don't know what you don't know. And so I'm here to talk about it.
We love that. We love a seasoned vet.
And I was going to say, we both have your contract. Kat worked with you to develop a specific contract for live event artists, which is amazing. And so we're both obviously not lawyers. So everything you say, we're really holding on to every word here. So you have done like a few reels about this. I just listened to one of your most recent episodes. A lot of our questions, I feel like you're definitely answering, and consistently, and I'm sure you're answering like the same questions again and again. But like for people who haven't heard these things, we're super pumped that you will repeat yourself. So thank you, in advance if you have said this stuff before and are saying it again.
I do not mind.
We've heard kind of like conflicting information about like what constitutes a legal contract. So like, what are the bare minimum requirements that you feel are like something to be considered as a contract? Because like, I've heard something about, an invoice counts as a contract, or, an email agreement that you just have in writing or text messages. Like, what is the actual thing? Because like we see contract, we see agreement, and then they have these random other things that people are like, well, that's an agreement. Sure. Like, and would that even hold up in a court of law? So curious to hear your perspective. I feel like that was kind of a loaded question, but I feel like you're super good at answering them. So
no, I love this question. It's come up quite a bit because the use of the words contract and agreement are used quite interchangeably. But if you learn anything from this podcast, it is this. A contract is an agreement. It's just actually four-cornered contract. An agreement is not necessarily a contract. So at its core, a legally binding contract just needs 4 basic elements. And we learn this in contract law when we're in law school, but like you probably haven't been to law school. So let me just reiterate this for you.
Correct.
It is an offer, an acceptance, consideration, and then mutual intent to be bound. I want to explain those just as simply as possible. What is an offer? An offer is someone says, I will do X for Y. Cool, that's the offer. The acceptance, the other person agrees to those terms. Consideration, this means that something of value is being exchanged, usually a money for a service. And then mutual intent to be bound, both parties genuinely intend to follow through. And there's usually some type of like parameters surrounding what that mutual intent to be bound is. So yes, to answer your question, after I just explained these 4 things and 4 elements that are necessary to make an agreement basically into a contract, is that even if it's super informal, an email, a text message, a napkin at a bar, it's one of the first cases that we learn in law school in contract law, is that if all of these 4 elements are present, it could be a legally binding contract. But just because it's legally binding doesn't mean it is a smart thing to do. So trust me, there are tons of holes if you contract, so to speak, with clients just through an informal agreement, because clients are going to take advantage of you. Maybe you lose out on money. Maybe you're not covered in all of the situations that we're going to get into. So yeah, an invoice technically can count as a contract. It's a really good question. I get it a lot. Sometimes people just send an invoice and they're like, here's the package, here's the price, maybe a few bullet point terms down below. That, practically speaking, would usually form a legally binding contract. But there's too much room for interpretation. That is where disputes happen. An invoice with payment terms might show like an agreement on price and date, but it doesn't cover cancellations, rescheduling, scope of services, scope creep, additional hours, copyright ownership. All of that is not going to be included in an invoice. So bottom line, just because it can be a contract doesn't mean it's a good one, right?
Yes. And I was kind of thinking
100%.
Yes. And I was just listening to your podcast. So I was listening to how you were kind of breaking down the difference between a ChatGPT generated contract versus like what an actual lawyer generated contract would be, and how it had like, 13 sections and yours had like 33 or something like that. And just how like an invoice is obviously not going to be the right move for you if you want something like legally binding, it sounds like.
Yeah, and I always tell people like something's better than nothing. So I'm never going to be a lawyer that's like, don't have a no contract and like maybe don't send an invoice. Like if you have an invoice and you're just starting out, at least try to be as clear as you can be with the bullet point terms. I always suggest having a contract for all of these reasons that I've explained in like a few of the situations that I've, hopefully popped up in your brain here. But an invoice that kind of acts as a legally binding contract. There is an agreement, there's quid pro quo, there's an offer acceptance consideration, there's usually mutual intent. They're kind of signing on to the invoice. There's an implied contract there. They've paid you. The invoice has been sent. It's better than nothing, right? It's going to get you about 10% of the way there, maybe. And then it's always just about becoming more legally legit as your business grows. And as you continue on, you will learn things from Kat and Alex on like, hey, we had this situation that's not going to be resolved with an invoice. So your contract is your legal foundation. It's the thing that is you're going to come back to time and time again with your clients. It's going to save you in situations where like you don't know what to say. Your contract can say it for you, which is really nice. And your clients go back to contracts too, more than you think. Like they have laser beam focus on their contracts that they signed. And if they have a question before coming to you, they will probably open up the contract and see if it resolves it. And then if they feel like coming to you, even if they feel like they have the answer with the contract, they're going to see if you have the same answer as your contract. So your contract is really important for you to understand as well, because you always, always want to do exactly as your contract says. You want your business policies to be unchanged, and your contract is only as good as your willingness to enforce it. And it doesn't mean you have to be like, this is what my contract says, but you just want to double down on your business policies that are in your contract when your client has those questions that come up.
Totally. Oh my gosh. Okay. So that kind of leads us into the next question we had, and just talking about like the evolution of contracts and how that kind of ties in with business. So I know both of us, not necessarily like intentionally, but it wasn't unintentionally, waited to implement contracts. One, just when we were newer in business, we didn't have, like the funds to invest in some of the contracts that were available at the time, or definitely not the funds to be investing in consulting a lawyer to custom draft a contract for us. I feel like that's risky, but I'll let you kind of tell us, like, is that risky? Is there like a point in time where you recommend like at this point, absolutely you need something in place? Or are there certain business activities that you would recommend, like, absolutely not, I wouldn't touch this without a contract? Like, help us guide some people who might be in our shoes where we were a couple of years ago.
Yeah, this is super common. I don't want to discredit anyone for just like giving business a go. Good for you. It's really common to amongst wedding vendors. Like there's just always this, like you're trying to get into business. Maybe it's a passion turning into a side hustle. You start off booking your friends and family as clients. Like you're just trying to get your portfolio established. I get that. Or you're booking like a friend of a friend through Instagram DMs. Totally understand. It is risky, but your risk level, and I call it like your risk meter, is actually pretty low at that point. Mm-hmm. Is there a time when you should have a contract in place? It always is the beginning. I think a contract is like number one thing that is going to protect you before business insurance, before you become an LLC. Like you need a contract, and here's when you need it actually, when the consideration is at play. So we go back to your guys' original question. If it's just a hobby or a passion project and you're trying to like see if you want to make this an actual business, the minute that money is exchanged, a contract really needs to be in play, because there's high emotions, there's high expectations, and you just have no idea when something could go wrong. And full disclosure here, usually it goes wrong with people that you know closest. So friends and family, sometimes there's bigger debacles. And I always just say, like, I just need you to sign a contract. Like, it's fine. I'm going to treat you as a client as I would any other client. So even if you're just starting out, just remember, like, your time, your energy, your artistry deserves protection. And it's needed in every single instance, even with family and friends. I will never forget the biggest mistake that I made back in like portrait photography world was having a couple friends sign on, and then they like nickel and dimed me for all of these additional edits, and like they threatened bad reviews. And like this is back in the day when like social media wasn't really totally a big deal or a big thing. But it's like friends' expectations sometimes can get wildly out of control. And so you just really want those parameters in place from the get-go. You all have the best of intentions when working with clients. And again, we're talking here the 5 to maybe 10% of yucky client situations, but they do come up and you just don't know when they're going to come up and who they're going to come up with. So yes, phasing in contracts, it should be intentional. And it should be intentional when you are moving from kind of hobby, passion project to even side hustle to full-blown business. Like if you're in that stage and people are giving you money for X services, contract is crucial.
Okay. So follow up to that. If someone isn't in a position where they're ready to invest or they're not able to invest, like what is maybe like 1 or 2 actionable steps that you would recommend for them, or maybe a free resource like you mentioned that they could check out about what should be included in the contract that they might be putting together?
Yeah, so I always tell people it's kind of a non-negotiable when you're setting up your business, just as it would be if you had like a brick and mortar business. You're going to need to do some check boxes to like open your business doors. So even if you feel like you don't have the funds, I was just on another recording and someone was telling me like, I would press upon my members and like my students all day long, put it on a credit card and pay it off within the year. Which is an interesting take because I think I kind of agree, honestly. It's like the gift that keeps on giving. Like the minute that you just use that as your overhead, you'll book a couple clients and you'll pay off your contract, and then your contract keeps on giving time and time again every time you book a new client. So I feel like people just think the shiny objects are non-negotiables, like an Instagram account, a website. You're going to pay for a website. You're going to pay for that overhead. A contract is a business non-negotiable in my eyes. If you're looking for like a free resource on like what you need to have included in your contract, I will absolutely make sure that your guys' audience has my contract clause checklist, and it'll go through like every provision that you need to make sure you have in your contract. But again, every contract is really specific towards the service providings that you have to your clients. So a general service agreement isn't going to cover live event calligraphy. As Kat and I know, we worked on that contract together, and she had like a line item bullet point list of 12 things she wanted to make sure that I had included in there, and then more. Then she had more feedback because she has experience on like, hey, all these situations occur. How would we resolve that in contract language? So lots of times, like a generic contract, again, might get you 30, 40% of the way there. Great, but it's not super specific to your business and to the clientele that you're serving and the offerings that you have for them or the type of services that you're providing to them. So I'm never going to be someone that says like, don't do it, skirt around it, like try not, try to avoid this. Like, I think it's an overhead cost that you need every single day, and the most important, more important than your business insurance and LLC.
I love that. That's interesting.
I like that. That's helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely like speaking from personal experience, the same thing. I think over time we've just added more and more to contracts or like made it way more specific. And I think that's what I love about your contract that you guys came up with was just like all the things that we've seen over the years that we're like, wait, we should really be requesting this. We should really be adding in this or this, like, if this happens, then we should have this, like those like ABC situations. So I think that's been, like a great upgrade for me personally. And then I've also like, customized it a little bit where I've added some stuff as well. So like, we both customize our your contract and, what's the best approach to really like personalizing those, like as we're, gaining that experience, as we're wanting to add more things, like without accidentally being like, oop, and we like worded that incorrectly, or oh, we like shouldn't really put that in a contract. Like, is there ever any sections like we shouldn't modify, or like how should we handle those addendums that we want to add?
Oh, this is a good question. Okay, so first and foremost, I want to say I totally believe that contracts are living documents. So in my opinion, you should do a contract audit, or more of like a back-end business audit on yourself once a year, and that includes contracts. So really think through like what happened with my clients the past 12 months. Some people do it every 6 months too, just to make sure that their contracts are always updated. And then you're adding in things, maybe you're clarifying language in your contract surrounding that. I'm going to get to the second part of your question of like what not to touch here in a second, but this all aligns together because because I think they're living documents, I'm going to change the contracts too. And one thing you should know about our contracts is this was like a morals and ethics thing when I first started. Is the industry may shift or client expectations may change, or I'm working with industry education leaders and thought leaders, and they have experiences that I do not know about. And they will come to me and be like, hey, this situation occurred, or this is going down in my, Facebook group. What do we do here? Is there something we need to change in the clause? And myself and the attorneys here at the Legal Page, we will update contracts free of charge. You will get complimentary updates. We will send you an email notification that like this, and this has changed in the contract, and here is why. So that's awesome.
You just sent one out.
Yeah, we just sent one out. Yeah, so it's like, hey, if this changed, this is why. Here's what I would do for future client bookings, like, replace these clauses or replace the contract in its entirety for future clients. So that's really cool. And I think people really love that about the Legal Page is we do that. And it's not an additional charge. I don't think it should be. And then there's like non-negotiables that I don't want you to touch. So when you open up a contract template from wherever you're getting it, but if you open one from us, there's going to be memos on the side. I'm not going to leave you like empty-handed. I want to walk you through it so you understand what your contract actually says and why it says certain things. So you'll see memos on the side from me. You'll also see if-then situations. I understand that like maybe this option doesn't work for your business, so maybe choose this option. And then you'll see, Alex, like you said, I will say modify this clause to whatever your business practices are. And that means that the clause doesn't really relate to other clauses. It's so service specific that there's not a lot of legal heavy language in it. And I give you some base language to work off of. So you can always modify clauses. We have the freedom to contract in the United States. You have the freedom to write your own legal language. What I don't want you to do is change any of those boilerplate general provisions at the bottom. So you'll know when they start popping up, it's the words you don't know, like indemnification and force majeure and entire agreement and like, no waiver and severability. You're like, WTF is going on? Don't touch those clauses, okay? And any clause that has reference to another clause, you want to be very careful about modifying because one tweak in one clause that relates to like section 7 might mean that section 7 needs to change or be nuanced down a little bit. So just be careful of that. And then I always disclaim, like, if you do modify your own contracts and you aren't a lawyer and you aren't an experienced contract lawyer or business lawyer, definitely try to get a lawyer to review it just so they can like check the boxes that you didn't miss anything. And then, yeah, we can get into like non-negotiables that I would suggest in your contract, but I don't know if that was part of your question or if it was more just like what to modify and what not to modify.
Yeah, I think it was a little like more what to modify versus not, as well as like, if there's a specific order and things like that. And I think you kind of answered that for us.
Awesome.
I have a question though. If we're adjusting those sections, I know you just put out something about some AI, but I feel like I know, again, I'm not a lawyer. So even like looking at modifying some of those sections that are just individualized to my business, like I think myself and other people might turn to AI and say, hey, this is my business process. I want to modify this section for like, my contract using AI. Like, is there a best practice in doing so? Are there things that we should look out for or avoid? Like, again, I know we're not, talking about doing a whole contract or modifying the sections that you're, saying not to touch. But for those sections where I'm like, my little girly pop language just is not going to get this done and it's not flowing with the rest of my contract. I need someone to help me zhuzh this up. Like, is there a best practice for using AI for those pieces?
Right now, there's not. AI it's a good sidekick in your back pocket. But honestly, like the more and more that we keep testing it out, language may sound more official just because an AI generated robot regurgitated it to you, but a lot of times it means nothing and it could actually invalidate other clauses in your contract. So like, for example, a contract could say, your client agrees to pay on time. But if it doesn't say what happens if they don't, then there's no consequence. And like AI forgot to put that in there because you didn't prompt it appropriately. So a lot of times AI generated platforms are only as good as your prompt putting into it. That's where enforcement and valid contract clauses get really, really tricky with AI. But again, I am not going to be the one to like tell you not to at least do something. So like if you want a provision in your contract and you have no idea how to write it and you're leaning on AI, I would say like at least try to prompt it as best as humanly possible regarding your client experiences, and maybe tell them like what your contract says in regards to other provisions that may be implicated, and then just see what it says. Always, always, always remember, it is not a trained lawyer. Yes, it took the bar exam, like ChatGPT passed the bar exam. People always ask me this. And I'm like, great. Well, the bar exam is a logic test and like AI can totally, pass a logic test, but can it actually like stand up and argue in front of a judge or a jury or an arbiter of the law and know exactly how they are interpreting nuances in contract law? No, like it's not a human. We all know, if we're talking to like calligraphers or copywriters or like, like at the end of the day, AI is doing like really cool things, but does it actually have that human touch? No, it isn't an actual lawyer.
No.
A good example of this, you guys, is lawyers have been disbarred by using AI because it was hallucinating and giving them incorrect cases that were like, no, these exist. Well, the judge couldn't find it. The law clerks couldn't find it. And lawyers are getting disbarred because they're using AI incorrectly because it doesn't have the human touch. So you've probably heard this, like with helping with blog posts on your website or copy on your website, like it's going to regurgitate really cool things back to you and the generated output is going to sound awesome. But you have to go in with a fine-tooth comb and make sure that it's actually correct and legitimate. And these models are only getting smarter and a little bit crazier. Like the US Copyright Office just put out this week that it is infringing on artists' copyrighted works. And we all need to be very, very cautious of that because it's taking from the lot of the online space. And a lot of that was copyrighted authorship. And so it's just fascinating, like how AI is all working with the legal world, and it's going to take time. It's bureaucratic, it's case law and, judicial processes that take time. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens over time. But again, Kat, to go back to the core of your question, I'm not going to say don't do it. I'm just going to say tread really cautiously because it's going to sound great, but it could really, really affect you in actually enforcing it or making it a valid clause or legal language in your contract. So AI contracts and AI language is really bare boned. At the end of the day, that's what we've been seeing. And as you said, Alex, like I just tore apart a ChatGPT contract and the lawyers and I were we were a little like surprised, but you probably saw in the podcast too. I was like, man, this is actually like, this part isn't that bad. Like good for AI that it's gotten to this place now. So yeah, I feel like, I'm always toying with it, but at the end of the day, like I'm a lawyer and I'm a professional and like doctors are saying this, CPAs are saying this, like we have licenses and malpractice insurance for a reason. And we are experts in X field for a reason. So I don't think we would be professional if we didn't like stand up for our profession as a whole.
Yeah. I mean, the same
100%.
thing for artists, right? Like it's stealing from artists. That was, I think, one of the biggest things, at least, in my little world online, was that like when when AI started, becoming even more popular the past couple of years, it's like, it's literally stealing from artists. So it's like hearing that it's stealing from or making up completely not even real cases is like absolutely wild. I am curious, like, do you guys ever, like, if someone did come up with a contract, is that one of the services that you guys offer of reviewing contracts, or is that something where you refer out, or you just say, like, go to your local lawyer?
Yeah, it's kind of fact and circumstance dependent, but it's not through the Legal Page. So the Legal Page is not a law firm. It's just a contract template shop and legal education platform. But I do have a law firm separate called Griffith Law, and myself and my attorneys do a lot of like intellectual property work over there. there. So trademark law, copyright law, and then we do some business audits, like whole brand protection, and do some contract reviews. Sometimes we can take on cases and sometimes we do have to refer out. But at the end of the day, I've been in this business a long time. I have a lot of colleagues in the industry, and we have a really good referral list for small business lawyers, particularly that work with creatives. So if you guys need a lawyer in your state, please don't hesitate to reach out. I probably have a good chunk of them, so you don't have to go to the Yellow Pages or go to Google and try to figure it out yourself. Like that's non-helpful to anyone.
That's awesome. And I think, it's always good to have someone review things, especially if, depending on that level of, what you're willing to financially invest. But then I guess for now, Kat, I guess I'll let you kind of share what's coming up, and Paige as well.
Yeah, Paige, do you want to talk about it? I know we have I think it's the mid-year sale. I forget. Do you want to describe what that is, what's going on, and how that might be helpful to our audience, especially those that may be in a position where they want to invest, but they haven't been able to just yet?
Yeah, so this is a really, really great time to get full legal protection for a fraction of the price. So we do 2 sales a year. And one is coming up. It's called the mid-year sale. And we do this every single year. And Kat is one of our amazing affiliates, particularly for the calligraphy industry. And she helped us do the live event calligraphy contract. She's reviewed the calligraphy contract, stationery contract. We have a combined contract if you do both. And so this is a really great time to kind of stock up on all of those legal contracts that we've talked about today, additional contracts you may need, like maybe you have an existing contract, but you need a cancellation contract or a rescheduling contract or a refund contract of some, sort. Or maybe third parties keep paying for your services and you're like, what happens if a third party's paying and I need my clients to sign the contract and that's a third party payer addendum? So a lot of people at this period of time, it's going to be hugely discounted. We're talking 40% or more off of our entire site. It's only 4 days long, so be very aware that it's only May 19th through May 22nd, and then we close the doors. And then Kat and Alex will have an additional code that you guys can use as well to, just get a little bit more off. And I know Kat will definitely talk about like all the contracts she uses in her business, but just to give you guys a little bit of a reason behind why people love the legal page, is they're lawyer drafted, but they're written in plain English. So everyone can understand them. Your contract is also only as good as everybody's understanding of the contract. It means nothing if there's a lot of confusion and legal mumbo jumbo, as I like to call it. If your clients don't know what your contracts say, then your contract really means nothing. Like there was no mutual intent to be bound because they didn't even know what that meant. So you always want rights and responsibilities of all parties involved. 2-sided contracts are better. Of course, it's your business contract, so it's going to be more heavily favored towards protecting you as a business owner.
Right.
But our contracts also allow that personalization that we talked about. So you can modify them without breaking legal structure. And I know what people worry about, but I will walk you through what to do and what not to do. You want to think of them as like flexible, but really sturdy framework. And that is how we've created our contract templates. So again, another reason not to use AI, it's just going to give you a contract, but tell you nothing about it. And like what you can change and why you could change things. And like, if you do this, maybe do this. And then, just remember lifetime free updates. So it's also something that's like a good investment now and continual investment into the future. And I highly recommend it. Kat, if you want to like I think what would be helpful for people is like going over just a couple clauses that you love in the live calligraphy contract that like maybe if people don't have, they should look into that contract.
Yeah, I think a couple just like pieces of feedback for you. My biggest flex is that I've actually negotiated with at least 3 luxury brands where I did not like their agreement. I was like, there's so many things I disagree with. I have one. Can we just use mine? And they were totally fine with that. I've negotiated out of an NDA with like another person. So I was like, I need some of these things. And they were like fine with, taking ours in. I've had multiple big luxury, like heritage brand legal teams look at it, have never sent me a red line. So I feel like that's a big feather in your cap. So, just something that I feel like was important to share. But I think for me, pieces that I didn't have in contracts before, that when we put together something, was really just like how to structure out the services and the things that I'm offering. I think before I was literally just writing like for our live calligraphy services. So even just that first page, or not the first page, whatever it is, I don't know the right word, but that where it's outlining what the services are, where I'm like, my deliverable includes X amount of time on a call, X amount of time for setup, about or up to X amount on site. I think that helped me get really clear in my offering for what I'm offering people, you know, within my package. So that was helpful for me. And then honestly, time and time again, the piece of it where it talks about my initial payment, and what happens to that if they decide to cancel, you know, all of those things. Like, I have implemented that contract at least twice, and that was something that dragged out for multiple times. There was someone that I even, you know, based on our contract, we were able to get full payment even though they decided to cancel because they didn't meet their end, which was super, super helpful. And then I think the other piece that is really specific to creative business owners that you wouldn't get, like we were saying, in some general agreement, is the piece you have about I forget what it's called, but it's like talking about the artistic style and really just making that expectation clear of like, this is not a font. It is my own handwritten calligraphy. I have the creative license to decide what is going to look best for this project. If you don't like what I decide, that is not sufficient reason to cancel, not enforce this contract, any of those pieces. Because sometimes, like, again, we like to think our clients do all the research. They look through all of your work samples, all of those things, which I think is actually how it's written in the contract, is like the client has reviewed my portfolio and has determined that, you know, my services will meet that, but they don't. Sometimes they don't. And they'll try to come back with that. And like you said, it's so nice to have that leg to stand on of like, sorry, you don't like the way that turned out. Unfortunately, like, this is still our agreement. Like, you signed it. I even have it where they have to initial it. Like, you doubled down on it. You said you read it. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, that's the power of contracts, right? It can talk for you when you don't know what to say. So that's really nice to always fall back on that. And yeah, you were talking about like really clear fee and retainer clauses and making sure that you explicitly say what that retainer is for and that it's non-refundable, and using verbiage like liquidated damages. Items to be customized, artistic style regarding the items to be customized. I know we were talking a lot about like what happens if your clients are supplying the product versus you supplying the product. Like all of those nuances need to be in a live calligraphy contract. Rush fees is a big thing as well, or like going beyond the scope. So you were talking about like scope of work, and then what happens if you're going beyond the scope, and that all relates to your fee and retainer clause as well. And rush fees if like they're booking something 30 days in advance versus, you know, 180 days in advance, and how you can get collateral for those type of events. So yeah, everything is included in that contract. And like you said, we actually just had someone else review the contract and give us even more feedback. And so we just tweaked things and added a few things in to make it even better. So that's what you can expect from Legal Paige contracts. And you guys, if you do anything kind of beyond live calligraphy as well, just reach out to us, because we can point you in the right direction of like what contract is going to best suit your business. We can also tell you like, this one's the closest. Here's how you would probably need to modify it on your own, just so you can have a general basis to work off of.
I think that's so awesome. And it was so great having you. I think this was super informative for us, as well as will be for our audience who's been kind of asking us some of these questions as well. And so we're just so lucky to have you in our corner, to have something where, you know, it's been collaborated on by real artists and a real lawyer. And so, yeah, we're pumped that this is a resource that we can provide collectively. And thank you so much for coming on.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. And then where can people find you? We'll obviously link it in the show notes and everything like that. But just in case people are listening, want to write it down now.
Yeah, so thelegalpaige.com, that's Paige. It's play on words with my first name, and yes, it is trademarked. And then you can find me at The Legal Paige on Instagram, and then tlpfacebook.com is our Facebook group. That's where myself and my lawyers hang out, and we answer like open Q&A all day long. So I can't answer like very specific one-on-one questions for legal ethics and responsibility purposes in like emails or DMs, but I can there. So that's a good place just to like social listen and kind of learn what's happening networking with clients and vendors in the industry, and you'll probably glean a lot of insight there. You can always reach out to me on any of those platforms too.
Amazing. Definitely bookmarking your Facebook group now because I didn't know about that. So great. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And yeah, have a great one.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paige.
Thanks.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening in to our interview with Paige. It was a short and sweet one for sure, but honestly, there were so many nuggets that I took out of it. Starting with, I need to change my contract from saying agreement to contract like immediately. I don't know if there was anything that you like highlighted, but there were so many notes that I took while we were listening.
100%. I think that was a lot packed in. So I think I need to literally go back and re-listen because it was going so fast that my brain could not even keep up with notes. So if you need to listen to this at like 0.5, then we understand because that was a lot of legal jargon, but also so important for us all to understand the nuances of why we all need a contract versus a agreement.
100%. And as Paige mentioned, at the time of this recording, it is going to be the time of her semi-annual sale or her mid-year sale, I think it's called. So that is going from May 19th to the 22nd, and it's a 40% discount off of everything in her shop. So now is the time. If you don't have a contract, go ahead and grab that live event calligraphy contract. It can be adapted, like she mentioned. If you're not a calligrapher, it can still be adapted to watercolor or fashion illustration, or I can't think of anything because like we said, we are very burnt out, but whatever your discipline may be, it can be adapted to that. As Paige mentioned, you can reach out to her as well. And if you want to make sure you're doing that the right way, and then use Cat Lauren 10 for an additional $10 off this week. So that's Cat CATLAUREN 10. And we'll put that in the show notes for you as well. But even if you already have a contract and maybe when you were listening to us talk, you were like, oh, like that addendum might be something that I like my contract, but I want to add to it and beef it up. Now is also a good time to add in any of those smaller things. Maybe you're subcontracting people, you need an independent contractor contract to send out to people. There's so many great things. I'll be sharing about some of that throughout the week. If you don't follow me already, now would be a good time to do that. And that actually transitioned us perfectly. So if you're not already following me, I am Cat Lauren Calligraphy. That's Cat with a C. And Alex, where can they find you?
I'm Signs of Our Lives on Instagram. And if you would also like to follow our podcast page, if you are somehow listening to this podcast and not following our podcast page, what are you doing? That's where we share our really funny Met Gala memes, obviously. So that is Keeping Up with the Calligs. And that's pretty much it. Like, follow, subscribe.
Leave us a review. 5 stars. Tell us what you like.
Yeah.
So we know what to keep doing.
I don't know if people know this, but you can leave 5 stars without leaving a comment. Like you can just leave 5 stars. Or if you want to leave a specific comment under episodes in Spotify, you can do that as well. So
we will try our best to remember to go look at it.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Thank you so much for keeping up. We are barely keeping up, but we love that you all are here keeping up with us. So, on that note, goodbye.
Love you guys. Bye.